So he's saying, talk about this soul-body disconnect. What do you mean by that? And he's turning to kind of like an aide who looks afraid to give him unpleasant information.
That's true.
But he's saying, well, we have all these reports that show that absolutely no bodies have their original souls. They're all disconnected and nothing for any period of time.
That's true.
And that it's pretty much just kind of like waves over sand.
Yes, the souls being the waves, the bodies being the sand.
Yes, and they just roll onto the beach and roll off, roll onto the beach and roll off. There's no commitment. And he says, well, then who's responsible for the soul plan? And somebody's saying, well, that's part of the problem. So we have that problem and we don't know how to deal with it. And what was the very first problem?
How to deal with undead.
The undead. And so there's lots, billions with a B, of presences who don't know they're dead, but they're quite dead. They're definitely dead.
That's
and they
true.
have no idea that they're dead, and so it isn't on their list of things to do to move up to the light. And it's making everything about 1,000 times more challenging because thought follows thought, and their thinking is seriously confused because they don't even know that they're dead.
That's true.
And they're confusing the living also, and it's making it really hard for anybody to keep their sacred fast to spirit and do what they're supposed to do. And so we don't know how to get them out on a mass scale, and we've been asking for instruction. This is a boots on the ground soul. We've been asking for instruction on how to get them out. Might be Saul, I don't know.
Might be Saul.
And the instruction was, we've been telling you what to do and you don't seem to be able to understand. Can you find an intermediary?
Yes,
and
that's right.
The wiser minds above pointed us to physicists because this is actually a physics problem.
That's true.
And also to engineers. But so we contacted some of the great minds of this planet because those are the names that we have. Somebody said, why are you limiting it to this planet? Well, first, because they might understand a little bit better what's going on.
That's true.
And second, because those are the names that we have. And so Dr. Einstein is the only one who actually seems to be trying to get an answer, and nothing's come in yet.
No, that's true.
As of right now.
No, you can check with him. He hasn't heard an answer yet.
He hasn't heard one that he understands. He doesn't seem disheartened by it. He says it can take a while.
That's true.
But we can't hear it either. We've been working on it for, it depends on how you count it. It could be several years, could be a decade, or it could be just a short period of time of maybe 8 months.
That's true.
But a concerted effort for 8 months. And we can't hear anything. We don't know what the instructions are. What now? What do we do about the undead? How do we get them out? And there's dimension upon dimension of them where everybody's of the same density, and so like when they hit the chair, their hands don't go through it, so it's pretty convincing. They say, look, I am alive, and they hit the chair, but they're floating up in the sky. We can see the soles of their feet, like everything's floating.
That's true.
So they're dead. What do we do about them? That same really high power who's responsible for Earth and maybe 50 to 80 other planets of approximately the same character as Earth, or size or something of Earth, or population. It's hard to tell how they're thinking about it. Is saying, all right, well, so far I don't have an answer off the top of my head to what you were talking about, but give me another one.
And what now to focus on the big issues of dead bodies and rebellion?
Oh, wow. And then the astral dimensions are just crawling with these, like, gangs of thugs who are just doing straight up bad things.
That's true.
And they're really messing up the thinking of the living.
That's
and
true.
Especially with this soul-body disconnect. These gangs of souls are come into bodies that tend to have bullying instincts anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Bullying ways, like attracts like, and now you have really bad people. What do we do about that? He's asking because he's saying, well, maybe there's something I know the answer just off the top of my head. So far, no, we'll have to get back to you on that. We'll have to get back to you on that. We'll have to get back to you on that. Give me another.
And what to do with oppositional defiant disorder everywhere, including inside and above.
And he says, what do you mean by that? And he's turning to some other, like an aide.
Yeah.
Who is giving him reports about the oppositional defiance, how it's in the tissues and the cells and the molecules and the atoms. And there he's saying, that aide is saying, and some experiments suggest that it's in the subatomic particles.
That's true.
And so it's everywhere, and we know everybody seems to understand that subatomic particles hop and move all the time. And so if it's in the subatomic particles, that's everywhere. Everywhere means everywhere, stirred thoroughly. There's no place where there is not oppositional defiance. As we're getting into the denser and denser levels of life. And in addition, there's oppositional defiance in the less dense levels of life, the realms of the undead, the astral dimensions. What do we do about that? He says, give me another one. So all of these things, he's not saying, I'm not going to answer. He's just saying, look, I'm looking for something I can give you off the top of my head. These things we're going to have to look into.
Yes. What now to focus on the big issues with nobody wanting to look up, ask up, and do what wiser minds above say to do?
He stops and looks up.
That's true.
And he feels sad in his heart. He thinks, wow, I should do that more. As should we all. And I see he's talking about how compelling it is when we usually know the answers.
Yes.
And we get used to knowing the answers.
Yes.
That we think, I don't need to bother my guardian angels about this. I've answered this question 100 times. I can answer it.
That's right.
And then we forget to look up, and that's how we begin to shrink and become less than we were before, when we stop trying to find a way to do it better. And how important it is, he's talking about this, how important it is to have this inquiry, a constant running inquiry of how can I do whatever it is I'm doing, how can I do it better? And when we hold that inquiry in our hearts, it helps us to remember to look up to wiser minds above, because often we're doing it the best way we know how, or if we're not, then we need to consider other issues that are going on.
That's true.
But when we're doing it the best way we know how, to ask up, how can I do it even better? That's his suggestion, his answer on that one. He says, well, it's a home project, and that's a choice in every moment. And for you yourself, viewer who asked this pretty good question, that's what you yourself can do. And the answer is thinking, and I can do a better job of this also, of holding this inquiry of how can I do everything better.
That's true.
He's hoping that that counts as having answered something. And he's saying basically, look, don't worry about what other people are or aren't doing. You're not going to be able to change them anyway. Worry about what you yourself are doing.
Oh, that's true.
And to look up ourselves is the most important thing, and the best way to develop a habit of looking up is to develop a habit of asking, how can I do this better? Whatever this is, all that this is of our lives.
And the next part of the question is, what now with bigotry upstairs?
He says, hold on, what? And some aide, a different aide is coming forward with some materials that it looks like it's been suppressed or censored or something.
True.
but it's definitely experiments that show that there's interdimensional bigotry.
Yeah, that's true.
Sir, are you aware of the several years long effort to update the antiquated laws of karmic attribution so everyone stands on his or her own merits regardless of size, gender, sexual orientation, or dimension of origin? Are you aware of that effort? You might have heard of it.
Might have heard of it.
It's kind of like something he heard of a while ago and hasn't heard of it since.
Yeah, that's true.
And he didn't focus on it then, and it
No.
didn't stick. But that effort is based on, it's a group of smaller presences who are asking for karma to be applied regardless of dimension. And when there's absolute refusal for that to occur, it kind of does look like bigotry, doesn't it?
I don't hear it.
I hasn't thought about that.
No.
He doesn't like that question.
No, the head just started to squeeze really hard.
He doesn't like that question. He says that question's disrespectful.
Disrespectful, that's the word.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's set that one aside.
Yeah.
So what do we label it then? Because that looks like bigotry to us. What do we call that? What label is more accurate?
The head is just really squeezy. And
Yeah.
It's hard to hear anything.
Yeah, he might. Does anybody up there really want to know what's actually going on down here in Ground Zero Planet Earth? What now to reopen the portal? I think he closed the portal.
I think that's the feeling of the portal closing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we got some good questions across the divide.
That's true.
They're going to decide what to do about those questions.
That's true.
They might decide to completely ignore them.
That's true.
Let's see if we can find some guardian angels, because those wiser minds above the godly presences make the rules.
That's true.
And they don't want to think about karma being applied regardless of size, gender, sexual orientation, or dimension of origin.
No,
and
that's true.
we think that that's bigotry. We do.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But there's still the higher powers, and they still make the rules, and to remember that. And it's really crazy to argue with higher powers, really, really deeply crazy. And the trick of life is to be able to see what's actually going on, and then to continue with an actually good attitude to do what our part is. And our Ra used to say, it isn't likely that we'll be able to change society, but our attempts to change society are good for us. And in the Search for Truth community, when we have asked, what do you mean by society? What do you mean by that? They say it's the interdimensional community that counts the most.
That's true.
So that's now there's a narrator speaking as if to children in the future. It's like closing a storybook.
Yes.
And it's in the future, and the narrator is saying, and that children is how that chapter ends, kind of thing.
Yes.
Wonder what they mean by that. What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
Well, like sometimes when they say how the chapter ends, that means another layer of levels of dimensions are about to be compressed.
That's true.
Because we really do, I don't know who's speaking now, we really do think that divinity and density must come in closer contact with each other if anything is ever going to change, because right now there's such a profound disconnect that truly divine presences don't really know how bad things are in the depths.
That's true.
And the depths are devoid of higher vibrations, and we don't see how it's going to change without higher vibrations. Whoever's speaking might be Saul.
Might be Saul.
Yeah. We don't and he's speaking for his team, we don't see how it's going to change without higher vibrations. So we really need divinity and density to come in closer contact, and it's possible some more of the accordion is going to be squeezed, collapsed shut.
That's
Possible.
true, the accordion of dimensions.
Thank you, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We know you don't have to help us.
That is true.
We absolutely get that. We know that you don't have to help our dimension, and we know that it's a home project to help this dimension, and we really get that it's our responsibility.
That's true.
How can we do it better? And by that we mean it's a home project for our dimension to help our dimension.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's also a conundrum, because the only way to help is to look up to wiser minds above, ask up what now, in order to help the dimension, and then do what wiser minds above say to do. And we think it's not a conundrum. We think it's a clear, somebody else is arguing, we think it's a clear sequencing of steps. Look up, ask up, and then do it. The way in which they say to do it, when they say to do it, to the best of our abilities, as if we intend to excel. And someone's going, Amen, Amen, Amen.
Yeah, I hear that presence.